Hello, and a very warm welcome from my side to today's video presentation. Today, we're going to take a look on how Swiss consumers are buying home and living items through online shopping and e-commerce. So just to start with, I would like to very briefly give you an overview about what we're going to do in the next 15 to 20 minutes. First of all, I will give you a very brief introduction about Netcomm Suisse Observatory, and then we're actually going to look at the consumer behavior in the home and living online market. So very briefly about Netcomm Suisse Observatory, we are the research unit of the Swiss e-commerce association Netcomm Suisse. We have three main research activities. First of all, we do qualitative research by interviewing industry experts for identifying best practices. Then we also do quantitative research by conducting online surveys with Swiss-based consumers about how they use online shopping and e-commerce, and also for identifying the latest trends in the e-commerce market. Then we also facilitate expert discussions by organizing occasions for industry leaders for exchanging their knowledge and ideas with their peers. So I quickly want to also show you where you can actually find our knowledge and insights. Go on our Netcomm Suisse Observatory portal. All of our research reports are featured there. If you are a Netcomm Suisse member, you of course get free access to all of our reports. To discover more about our observatory portal, go on observatory.netcommswiss.ch. Now here you find a broad selection of reports. You can either divide them by best practices, expert knowledge, market data. You can also filter it according to the industries. So for example, for the report of today, you can filter smart living and working, and then you will discover two reports that we did. So for the report I'm presenting you today, you can very simply scroll down, either register for accessing a free sample before, or you can directly get the full report. Just very briefly about myself, I am working at Netcomm Suisse as a market insights manager, and my mission is the creation of a high quality and reliable source of knowledge for our members and for our stakeholders. Before we take a look at the study, I'd like to thank our partners for this research report, so which is on one side Swiss Post and Essendia. Essendia is a part of the Swiss Post. They are offering a solution for cross-border e-commerce by handling the VAT and custom duty processes of merchants and online shops. On the other side, I would also like to thank Apertamente, our research partner, for the creation of this report and for supporting us to access market data. For both our partners, you find the relevant links directly in the description below. Before we start, I would like to give you a very brief definition of the market that we're going to take a look at. It's actually quite a broad market. So on one side, it's about smaller and larger items of furniture. Then it also includes decorative items and furnishing accessories. Then we also include consumer electronics, home automation and smart home devices, and finally, home security devices. So the objective of this study is, of course, to understand how Swiss consumers are using e-commerce and digital channels for buying home and living items. But then we also take a look on how they are adapting towards new technologies and towards new service models. The methodology that we applied is an online survey with consumers, highly focused on 200 active online shoppers. The study was conducted in early February 2020, and therefore he is showing the situation as it was before the coronavirus has arrived in Switzerland. Nevertheless, I think the data is highly valid and will definitely show you some interesting insights. So Swiss consumers are actually buying quite many categories quite frequently online. So we see home appliances as the leading position, then small pieces of furniture, which includes also things like tables or desks. Then also household items and decorative elements are quite popular. We also see that 35% in our sample are buying large pieces of furniture, such as wardrobes and beds. But then also we see that home automation articles are also bought online, and security items. Nevertheless, those two are rather niche market items. So I think 70% is quite a good representation in our sample of those elements. So cross-border e-commerce is a global trend and is helping all e-commerce markets across the world to grow, and also online shops that are really mastering this game to grow all proportionally. Here we see that we have 38% of our sample that is actively buying abroad. The main groups, or the groups that are most fancying buying on other markets, are Swiss German people between 25 years and 45 years of age, male consumers, and people who are having rather high spending. So here we talk about more than 125 Swiss francs per purchase. It's mainly about looking for better prices, but then also for accessing a broader assortment and products that are not available in Switzerland. But we also see here that there is a very small share of people who is also saying that online shops abroad have a more customer-friendly return policy. So this might be also related to the fact that this is a category with a high touch and feel attribute, and therefore offering return might be an important factor for getting the confidence of consumers. Now, the devices that consumers are using when ordering home and living items online mainly is dominated by smartphones, of course, as in every market, but we also see that desktop devices such as PC and laptop are quite important and used by more than half of the sample. So here, very interesting is the comparison between the general used tools on the left side and the tools for home and living on the right side. So here we see actually that the purchases are less frequent, of course, but we also see that the difference between smartphone, PC, and laptop on the right side is less pronounced than on the left side. So this means actually that desktop devices are relatively more important for home and living purchases than in general, which also is due to the fact that consumers have a larger screen, and that this larger screen might support the decision-making process. So mobile first, yes, but not only. Now, another thing that I would very quickly like to introduce to you are so-called re-commerce models. Here, taking the example of IKEA, so-called second chance. So IKEA is actually rebuying already used pieces of furniture from their customers by offering them a voucher on their future purchase. The value of the voucher is depending on the quality of the product. So here we see a chair, an office chair in good condition with minor signs of wear, and in exchange the consumer would get a 40 franc voucher. So this is very smart. On one side, IKEA is getting control of the second-hand market. On the other side, the consumer is also getting a IKEA voucher and therefore will stick with the brand for his future purchases. So we also took a look on how appealing those re-commerce models are for Swiss consumers by on one side looking on how important it is for them to exchange their old pieces of furniture against a voucher, but on the other side also looking at how often they are buying from second-hand markets. So we see that for half of our sample, it's quite important to exchange all pieces of furniture against a voucher. And on the other side, we also have about 40% of the sample that is using second-hand markets quite regularly, with the main users group being people between 25 and 35 years of age. of course, as younger consumer groups find more appeal to it. So therefore, there's clearly an open door for such models in Switzerland. Then now let's take a look into the future and talk about smart home devices. So we see here that also about half of our sample is interested in using smart home technologies, also for home automation, but also smart speakers. And we also see here that 39% of this half that is interested in using these devices is already using them. And we see further 20% out of that group who is considering to buy such devices in the near future. Another very important future trend is the shift from ownership to usership of products. And here we see where Swiss consumers are in this process. We see that rental and subscription models in the home and living domain are used by 10% of our sample, and 90% are then not using it. But out of those 90%, we see that there is a small group that is very open to start using such models in the near future. We also see that there is a fraction that is not familiar with such models. And we also see that there is a larger fraction that might consider it one day. So there's definitely some potential to further educate the market. And I think this is also something that could happen as IKEA and other larger retailers are moving on with such offerings in the near future. So let's very quickly wrap it up what we've seen together. So we see that Swiss consumers are open to order also large items online. You also seen that we have a share of around 1/3 in our sample that is buying home and living items abroad. And they are mainly looking for accessing a greater variety and finding better prices. Then smartphones are the #1 device used, but also desktop devices are quite important as larger screens seem to be a great asset in their customer journey. Then we also see that especially younger consumers are very interested in buying on second-hand markets, which is opening the door for e-commerce models for brands. Then we also see that Swiss consumers are interested in using smart home technology, and we also have a group that is already using such devices. Then there is also a further potential for education on consumers for shifting from ownership-based to usership-based models. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching our online presentation today. Stay safe and stay at home, and I hope that we can see each other in the near future on a physical occasion. Thank you very much and have a great day.